So good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to the second day of the CEO Leaders Summit. And I'm absolutely honoured to have Ford Bowers, CEO of Printing United, join me. So hi to you, Ford.
Good morning. How are you? Or afternoon, I suppose.
Yeah. I'm very good, actually. And thank you for joining us. And it's a pleasure to have you with us because actually I've been thinking about this particular conversation and interview because we've known each other a few years. And I think out of all the trade associations out there, Printing United, or SGIA as it was, as kind of really driving forward through this period of challenging environment. And I really wanted to find out what was going on, what was happening, what you've been doing. So Ford, let's just kick off. For anyone who doesn't know who you are, just give us a very short introduction to the Ford Bowers story.
Okay, I'll be happy to do that. Well, I am a reformed printer. I was on the front lines of printing with a company out of Atlanta. We mostly in the wide format, retail arena. And so I did that for quite a while and learned a lot in my 9 or 10 years at Miller-Zell in Atlanta. It's a great company. Very happy to have had some exposure to really the big world of print, as it were. And in the course of that tenure there, I ran into some people at SGIA, including Mike Robertson, who's the former CEO of SGIA. And he invited me to participate in a couple of things. And before you know it, I'm serving on a couple of committees. And then I was asked to serve on the board of directors. And in 2015, he announced his imminent retirement. I was serving on the board because my last name is not Miller or Zell. So a couple of the board members came to me and said, might you be available for this? And I said, I think I might. That seems like a really interesting thing to do. So it worked out that they brought me on. I started 5 years ago, January of 2016. And so that was my entree into the world of associations, which I knew something about, but not a whole lot about. And of course, also into the world of trade shows and, other types of things that I had a lot to learn. So I spent the first couple of years trying to absorb, get the lay of the land, and figure out what we needed to do. I did come in with some preconceived notions, so I can't say that I was entirely without predilection, and I was a blank slate. But when I came in, I did have some specific thoughts about the direction that SGIA needed to go, not just for its own future, but because of what was happening in the marketplace in terms of this concept that we call convergence or migration, whatever your point of view is. You might call it one or the other. So I felt it was important to try to maybe change the narrative, to change even the mission of SGIA, and so that's what the last few years have been about, is doing that. So here I sit a number of years later, and older, probably not a whole lot wiser, but certainly hopefully have done some things that will are already bearing fruit, and hopefully will bear much more in the future.
Yeah, and I think obviously because of my own experience within a trade association back in my FESPA days, and to have observed Mike Robertson as CEO for many years, he really didn't change many things. And I think in the short period of time that you've been with the organisation, you've changed some things, not to the extent of sort of damaging what the good stuff, but just changed it for the better. And as a trade association, you seem to be absolutely on the right track. And I guess the situation with COVID has come along and kind of made it quite a challenging last year or so, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, what was it they were talking about? This was the last normal week we had last year before everything just kind of went to pieces. And I think it was this Friday will mark the last day that I spent in the office before everybody went home. So it has been definitely a challenging year for us, for the industry, for us specifically, because we're an events driven company, and can't have events in a pandemic. So clearly we had some issues that we had to scramble to deal with internally, but more so the print service providers, the suppliers and manufacturers, all had to scramble to adapt, to understand how this was going to affect them, to do everything from restructuring and furloughing to changing their business models in many cases. How do they adapt to new applications rapidly enough to be able to serve markets, like PPE and things along those personal protective equipment? So a lot of whom did that. Some of the segments didn't fare so badly. I mean, packaging is one of those that wasn't hammered. Apparel got hammered. So it was really a mixed bag over the last year. So we felt as an association that were certain things that we could do to assist. So.
Yeah, and I'd like to know a little bit more about that. But just for anyone who's not clear on Printing United, you represent who?
So Printing United. So who does the association represent?
Yeah, sorry, who does the association represent?
Right. So it's undergone a change over the last number of years, so our overarching philosophy now is that because printers are not, these are the predilections I came in with, by the way. So printers are not staying in their lanes, and I knew this because I was a printer. We were a screen and offset shop, 100% analog screen and offset. That's how we produced everything we did. By the time I left, we were 95% digital. And then in adopting digital printing equipment and workflows and figuring out how to do that stuff, the next thing to do is, well, we're printing all of this stuff digitally, but it's not that the barriers to entry then to do sheet-fed digital, web digital, label digital, these things. I don't have to learn how to be a flexo printer. I don't have to do that sort of thing. So this was really lowering the barriers to entry to verticals, which normally would keep printers separated. So you had these people running across different channels, serving different clients, developing different applications, and that was already happening when I came on board. And of course, it's
So I guess what you're saying is that you reflect the industry, the changes within the industry. So you're not, although SGIA were clearly the wide format market, you're not specifically, you're broader than that, as a kind of broad church that covers all elements of print. And so you've had some mergers with the different associations have come in to create, in essence, the one-stop shop print association. Is that right? Have I got that right?
Yes, that's right. So basically, whether it's apparel or or textile or functional printing or commercial or packaging, yes, we have members that represent all of those things. And and we felt in this country that the fragmentation of the association world. It's great to have associations that are niche and can go really deep into some of these disciplines. Those are needed, those are valuable, and those need to stay along and to continue to do what they're doing. But we felt that having an overarching association was important for a couple of reasons. The first of which is that there are some structural issues in the printing world that everybody has on the top of their head all the time. Workforce development, for example.
Yeah, which apply within any sector of print, don't they?
It doesn't matter. How do we bring people in? How do we retain them? How do we advance them? And so it's hard to do that if you're only dealing with a slice, because people move in and out of the slices. You need something that kind of takes a broad approach to how to solve that problem. Now, I'm not saying we've solved that problem. We haven't really even begun to solve that problem. But then there's also the concept of legislative affairs. So how do we have enough weight or heft to really pack a wallop when we get called up to the hill, sort of thing. When we do lobbying on behalf of the industry, it's really a much larger industry than people on Capitol Hill are aware of, and really most printers aren't aware of it. So about how massive the industry actually is. So having that one overarching thing is important at that level. The other thing too is that if you're a print service provider or an OEM, OEMs are usually not building equipment for one slice. They're building equipment across. So to be able to bring those audiences together is much more efficient for them in terms of attacking the marketplace. It doesn't mean that they won't have specific applications, but one place to come to get that audience is pretty good. And then for the print service providers, one place to go. And so, okay, so I'm a label guy, but I could also do folding cartons, because
Sure.
I also, that. So how do you migrate from one to the other?
So in a way, what you've said and what we also see is that the print ecosystem is interconnected.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that increasingly interconnected. And interestingly, when we ran our recent conference, one of the themes that came through on several was that the COVID crisis has enabled particularly the software developers to really enhance their software, really to rethink the value of their software. Right. And there's a number of companies that have really developed their software to connect all these different elements of the print sector, which have been exactly as you said. People have bought a bit of kit, bit of wide format, bit of label. Now you're sitting in your factory. How do you interconnect all that? And that's
what does that workflow look like? So software is absolutely the brass ring for this is to be able to tie these workflows together and make projects out of disparate pieces.
So just a couple of quick questions that I think would be interesting to the wider audience. In terms of your membership and your community, it's just US, it's just North America. Does it stretch any further than that?
I would say it's predominantly US. We do have Canadian companies in our membership as well. We do have members outside of the US, but a very small percentage. We have also working relationships with other associations around the world where their members have the ability to be our members for really just, almost no money, sort of thing. So just, that's really just an information sharing kind of exercise, goodwill.
Yeah. I'd imagine that some people, I'd imagine some people in Europe are quite envious of the world in the US because, there are some quite good local trade associations in certain countries, but there isn't necessarily that sort of pan-European way of delivering value. And as you said, it's interesting, I'm sure that the issues that face an American printer are the same issues that face a Dutch printer or German printer or UK printer. So why can't we share this knowledge? So I think you're right there. So just going back to some of the things you do, just give me a couple of little highlights of the type of things that as an organization you do for the printer. Give me a couple of highlights.
Well, let's go back to the COVID thing. So when this first kind of broke, last March, and everybody started to realize, okay, this is a tsunami of, that we're about to get swept by. And we were kind of scanning all of the various sources of information. And what we noticed was there was a lot of information being proffered, but there was no real complete way to get the full warp and woof of all of the things that you needed to know and be able to track. So we created a COVID resource page on the NAPCO media side of our thing. And so we have, of course, a lot of subject matter experts in human resources, in legislation, EHS issues, and all of those things. And we said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to create a spot where anyone in the industry can go. And they can find out how the legislation is tracking in their state or at federal level. They can get expert articles and advice from subject matter experts, and really just one-stop shopping for that kind of thing as well. And it was amazing how rapidly that took hold. I mean, we were literally getting hundreds of thousands of hits per month on that website in the early days. It's tapered off now because, things aren't moving as quickly. But I remember Marcy Kenter, who does our EHS stuff and really deals a lot with state regulatory issues. She had one article about what does this mean for your state? And she went state by state, and then that 70,000 hits in like 2 weeks.
And how many people have you got sort of employed within the organization, just to give us a bit of understanding?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. Somewhere right now between 135 and 140.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It'll be about, by the end of the year, if things go well, it'll be about 150. So we're building for a good future for us. So.
Yeah. And actually, that's what's interesting. You're CEO, leader of this organization with far-reaching membership, 130, 140 people working for you, and as you said, lots of connections with others. You're very much a sort of man of the people. You're not a kind of, here I am, one of these sort of swans around, kind of enjoying life and the fruits of your the success of the organization. You're very much a man of the people, and I guess that's quite nice for the industry to see that in you. That you still kind of get it. You're fighting their cause. You've got an interest in it's not about feathering your nest at all.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of people around me who keep me humble.
Yeah.
so that's not really a huge issue. They're quick to point out when I'm wrong, and so and they do a good job of keeping on the straight and narrow. I think that the reality of it is what I want to do probably cannot be accomplished in a lifetime, and as long as you have goals that exceed your event horizon, I think that you stay engaged and plugged in. It's when you think you've arrived that you start to kind of kick back a bit. But I'm not under any illusion that some of my more grandiose ideas will see the light of day for quite a few years. It's really about how you set goals, I think.
Yeah, no, but genuinely, you and I remember meeting when you'd first taken over the role, and we were at Drupa, funnily enough, in 2016. And
that's right. Yeah.
I sensed there that you had a vision to make some changes, but I don't sense that they've been disruptive changes. They've been sort of enhancing essentially something that Mike Robertson had been sitting on for a long time and hadn't really kind of made work effectively. And that's what we sense here. Let's just talk a little bit about, obviously, you've got a super successful trade show, and the COVID situation has meant that hasn't taken place. Now, and I know that you've got a relationship now, NAPCO working. NAPCO offers lots of other sort of services, don't they? You've got the sort of the media element. You're able to kind of create a digital online platform as much as just sort of only, events. So tell us what's happening there.
Yeah, so we really, now that we're kind of a large broad-based thing, so we really have three distinct business units, and so one business unit is the association side, so that houses what used to be SGIA PIA as the alliance, and then also TAGA, the Technical Association for the Graphic Arts, which is a branded entity within that, and they operate independently of us, have their own dues and members and so on. Mm-hmm. And now ID Alliance, of course, is part of that as well.
That's recent, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep. And then we have the media group, right, which is the former NAPCO media. And what we did is, because the associations and the media group, we both had events. What we did is we kind of pulled those out and made an events group. So we have events, we have media, and we have association. So those are the three big split there. And of course, all of this has kind of happened in the last year and a half. So is all. So, and COVID did not really help us in terms of really leveraging it, make it more of the sum of its parts. We were fighting a rearguard action as everybody was. So, so on the event side, clearly, I think they did a wonderful job with the digital experience, Printing United digital experience. It was different than a lot of what you see out there in terms of the trade show type events. And we had 60 hours of video. We had dozens of product launches, which is strange for an online trade show to do product launches, but that was very important to help the OEMs continue to get their pipeline full. And quite honestly, it's not a moneymaker like a trade show. Trade shows an economic engine for associations that have them. But this was something even though it just about killed us, we felt it was very important to try to put something together that was different, that was effective, because we felt the suppliers and the OEMs were kind of running out of oxygen in terms of top of the funnel, getting leads in. And we had a good response. We had over 9,000 registrations and 112 different countries. So it was that. And
we're all learning, aren't we? This technology is good, but it was in a way it was useful that the NAPCO relationship was in place, because they obviously are there. You've got a great asset there to supplement the traditional trade show format. I'll talk about the trade show in a moment. I just want to ask, a little bit about your vision coming out of COVID and what you said. I believe you did a big survey fairly recently. So just give us a bit of insight for any printers out there kind of listening to you. What's going to happen?
So Andy Paparosi, who does our association side research, he's been following COVID pretty closely, and he just released the third installment, I think third or fourth installment of the effects of COVID kind of research, that sort of thing, and that really covered the end of last year because it was released in February, and so. What we saw, of course, we saw a massive drop. In the April-May time frame, we saw a 53% decline, and then it was 30% decline in the June-July, and then August-September it was another 4 or 5% decline. So you saw this huge cliff. So in November-December, what we saw is that sales had kind of flatlined. So month to month, November to December. And so, well, that sounds horrible. Well, they flatlined and it's at the bottom of the trough. At least it's the bottom of the trough. Yeah. It appears to be the bottom of the trough. And so looking ahead, and Andy, what Andy's really good at is because he's an economist and not just a researcher, he overlays his understanding of print with the understanding of happening in the larger economy. So the Wall Street Journal, for example, polled 60 researchers, and they said that they believe that GDP in this country will be 3.7% this year. Bloomberg just came out and said it's going to be 5.5%.
Yeah.
Goldman Sachs came out and said it's going to be 7.7%. Now, I'll take any of those numbers.
But there's a sense of a bounce back, isn't there? There's a sense of a bounce back.
But we think it's going to bounce back for us, and Andy's predicting 2.5% to 4% this year, which will be the biggest increase.
But give me the areas that you think will really bounce back quickly. What are you thinking? What typically application-wise, what print applications, what areas do you see really sort of,
So I think that finished products and goods are going to explode. So your packaging guys are, who weren't as roughly beat up are going to make out pretty well. I think retail is going to make out pretty, and if you're dealing with the retail end of the thing, because apparel was such a deep trough, and because now they're talking about sporting events coming back, schools being in the fall. I mean, that's where a lot of that comes into play with concerts and all of those types of things. So the apparel decorators out there, hopefully they can hang in till about mid-year, and then it should start to take off. And they may see, from the bottom of the trough, they may see proportionally larger increases, but probably won't be quite as healthy by the end of the year as maybe some of these other segments. So.
No, do you sense that e-commerce is going to become something that's relevant to the print industry? The sort of online, order online, on demand. Are you hearing that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So no secret here. For example, Amazon if you just look at book publishing, for example, so they sell 50% of all books in this country, right? So through Amazon. So now what they're doing also is they're investing, they're buying direct to garment digital printing devices by the score. I mean, it's so they are, and of course, Amazon and some of these other things, smaller organizations and companies could do their one-offs and fulfill and so on and so forth. Amazon's getting into that same business. So
you sense this sort of short-run production, on-demand production,
short-run production.
Yeah.
So I think that more and more will be done online. I think that digital production, in all of its forms, is going to drive the ability to be able to shop more easily online. And I hate to say it, but it's going to be somewhat less about service levels and more about fulfillment and the ability to deliver on time and on price.
Yeah,
I hate to say it, but that they're going to be. Now, the good news is that digital printing is still, as you know, no more than 5 or 10% of total print volume.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not huge, but this is definitely going to accelerate it. And what will happen is it's not that digital printing is going to surpass analog in terms of the economic efficiency necessarily on the long runs. What's going to happen is the buying patterns will change. and that will force the migration to digital. It's going to be the consumers who determine how you print it based on their timelines and their ordering patterns, and that's what it won't be a decision printers make.
No, so good sign for the digital market and for the machinery developed in the market. Okay, got that. And I think that makes sense. That resonates with what we're seeing as well. Just as we come to the end of the interview, I just want to pick up on obviously the trade show world. As we all know, Drupa has not taken place this April.
Very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. And the European market trade shows are, it's going to be really challenging, even in the fall, the autumn period. I can't see trade shows taking place in Europe. Maybe some localized events, possibly, but the idea that people move across boundaries and it's just unlikely. However, of course, America is slightly different, and you have your regular event, the big event that takes place normally in sort of October time, Printing United, planned for October 6th to the 8th. Have I got that right? Okay. I'm going to tell you. No, it's fine. I'll tell you. It's 6th to the 8th.
Let me get back to you.
No, it's fine. It's 6th to the 8th. Planned for 6th to the 8th in Orlando. Is this going to take place, Ford?
Yes, this is going to take place. Yeah, I'm extremely confident, unless we get a wild variant that the current vaccination can't control. But all signs right now point to not only are we going to have it, it's going to be a pretty good show. There's certainly we're starting to field ourselves research into attitudes about travel. We'll do a little bit more of that. I know that there are some travel restrictions for a lot of the suppliers still in place, and they anticipate they'll be in place into later this year. So that remains to be seen how much of those get lifted. But what's happening here, certainly in the U.S., is that according to the Biden administration, we'll have enough vaccinations for everybody in the country by the end of May. And by the end of June into July, everyone who wants one can get one. Now, we don't know what the adoption rate is. Right now, we're thinking it's going to be about 70%. But I think as people do the vaccine, we might even be able to push up to 80%. That's 4 months before the show. So we get 70 to 80% of the people vaccinated.
Yeah, you'll feel more confident, won't you? You'll feel more confident. You're more comfortable. So, I think you're right. I mean, sitting on this side of the pond, if it takes place, I think we would travel to the US if we could travel. I genuinely think that Europe will. It's going to be tougher for Europe. It's just not as straightforward. The vaccines aren't coming through as quickly. I think you're right, and it would be a great thing for you guys to be the show this year, the ones that kind of made it happen. And I think you've got everything in place to do that. And certainly as an organization with NAPCO, you're there to do it. So that's a really good sign. Let's hope. Fingers crossed. Yeah, fingers crossed. Exactly. Ford, as we wrap up, is there any final thing you'd like to comment to say? Remember, as I said, this was all about leadership. This is all about sort of as an organization. That's why I was so interested to get you on board. You're the only CEO of a trade association that we're doing a sort of one-to-one with, because actually I truly believe you are leading the way. So is there anything you want to say in terms of the sort of direction and where we're going?
Well, I if nothing else, I'd say pick a direction and go. I mean, that seems to be, a lot of the issues with, isn't that kind of what, you have to go with it. Stick with it. You got to have an understanding of how things could be better. And once you have an understanding of how things could be better, maybe you achieve it, maybe you don't. But pick a direction and don't stay still. I mean, associations are not immune to business rules, and market forces. I mean, if nothing else, I think we've done a good job at kind of reading the tea leaves and trying to figure out what our next moves are and how to build a more comprehensive association, one that's relevant, one that's effective, one that helps more and more printers each year. That's really, kind of what it is. And of course that requires business decisions,
No, I think you're right. I think you are the shining example of how a trade association in the print industry should operate. And, I'm pleased that you had the time to come and have a chat with us.
All right. Well, I'm going to put that on the front page of our website.
Yeah, no, listen, generally. And listen, I should know. I've been in a trade association in the print industry, so I should know what it looks like. So thank you to you. and hope to see you in October. And thank you very much again.